Ladies and gentlemen, former British Special Forces, former world champion base jumper, current bodyguard, current jiu-jitsu aficionado, Jamie Flynn. Jamie, how are you doing?
Good, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming down. You had to do that drive on the Sea to Sky Highway this morning, eh?
I will never, ever get bored of that drive.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I've come from London, or in the arse end of England, and honestly, like, driving that highway every day, you can't get bored of it. Like, it changes every day. Mm-hmm. It's pretty sweet.
Oh, come on, the rolling hills of England, or is it in more of an industrial setting where you grew up?
Well, I grew up in an industrial setting. Like, initially I was from a little shithole, called Slough, which is, like, in a horrible area of London. Like, just outside London, it's not very nice.
Okay.
And then later on in my life...
So when you say horrible, like, just bleak and industrial, or very poor, or what?
Bleak, industrial, pretty poor. Mars chocolate bars.
Yeah.
They're made in Slough.
Okay.
Yeah, so you got the smell of the chocolate factory, which is disgusting.
I completely agree. I don't think Mars bars shouldn't be chocolate bars. They're candy bars.
They are.
This is if I...
And I'm telling you, the smell across the town.
Really?
Like, if you lived in Slough or even passed through it, like, Slough has this horrible plastic, disgusting smell that just lingers. And everyone's like, yeah, that's the chocolate factory. It's not what you imagine.
Wow.
Yeah, it's horrible. But
Willy Wonka left town, and we left...
we left Mars bars to take over.
So, you went into the army.
Yeah.
What age did you go into the army at?
I just turned 16, so I left school.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're allowed to go in at 16?
Yeah, like, I think now they've changed it to 18.
Okay.
I might be wrong. Like, it's been a few years since I left the army. But when I was there was a thing called junior leaders.
Oh, okay.
So you went to a college. So the college that I went to was in Harrogate. So it's like North Yorkshire. So it's probably about 8 or 9 hours from where I grew up. And I was 16. I got on a train, and my parents were just like, okay, see ya. Like, and I was like, got on the train, and I was like, 16 years old, like, bushy eye. Like, I look at 16-year-olds now, and I'm like, holy, I was young.
Well, I'm sure the average 16-year-old male has now fired off many, many, many thousands more rounds than you did in your whole entire army career. Of course, it's all virtual.
Yeah.
they're pretty much trained killers too.
Yeah, exactly. Call of Duty is something to write home about.
Was it there was that super sexy Mexican weather girl. Have you ever seen footage of her? The Yanette Garcia?
No.
I mean, she's been surgically enhanced to be ridiculous. It's like a human Barbie doll. Really hot.
Yeah.
And she was recently left by her boyfriend, who wanted to pursue his Call of Duty career.
Well,
which just drives home, maybe she's really annoying. It could be.
Well, if you talk to my wife about Call of Duty, she hates it. Okay. I sit there sometimes, and you can see her eyes roll. She's like, what the hell are you doing?
You can hear her eyes roll.
Oh, I can already hear her, and she hasn't even come home yet, and she's already having a go. But yeah, she comes, she's like, why? And I'm like, I don't know, like, I like video games, like, but it doesn't, it chills me out. It's like a state of meditation. Like, I don't have to think about what's going on here, and I only play for like 30 minutes, and then I'm bored, and put it down, but I then feel a little bit more chilled out, and I can settle down for the evening.
Well, let's drag it back from sexy Mexican weather girls and video games back to your army career. So there you are, 16, you went to a junior leaders program.
Yeah, so I turned up at Harrogate, and I lined up, like, you come off the train, and I had my suitcase and a sandwich, and I'm stood there, and I get off, and this guy's standing there, and he had, like...
This is your first exposure to the army. You'd never been a member of the cadets, or...
I was in the cadets when I was younger, but, like, it doesn't really compare anything.
Okay.
I stepped off, and I looked over, and I saw a guy with a parachute regiment beret-shaped, like... I looked at him and was just like, wow, that guy... I looked at that guy, and he was just like, wow, that guy looks amazing. Like, he looks like a soldier. And I walked over to him, I said, hi, I'm Jamie, and he was just like... Looked at my hand like, nah, go and stand against that wall. I was like, okay. So I stood at this wall, and I was like, I need to go to the toilet. I said, stand against that wall. I'm like, okay. So waited. Then more people, trains come down, and when they got a group of us, they chucked us on the bus, and we drove in, and that's how, that was my introduction. straight in, moved into a bedroom. Like there was like 8 or 9 in the bedroom, and I just walked in there and I'm just stood, like, that's your bed. And then there's just all these other 16-year-olds, and from then onwards we were just
full on Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, it was just like everyone like, what the hell just happened? And then they're like, okay, don't pack anything up, and then we get issued all gear. It was like a whirlwind. The first, like, you didn't know what was going on. You were just like, go here, go there. Here's gear. Here's this. I'm a size 8 boot. They're like, yeah, we only have size 9s. There we go. Like, shit bus, that's what you're going to get. And it just, after a while, you just get into these routine. And like the course I was on was a year, so you did loads of education, so you wanted to like up your education a bit more because you're only 16. In there, they taught you army drills, but over a longer period of time. So normally a British Army unit for their basic training is like 6 weeks, and then another 6 weeks. So it's really condensed, whereas we had a whole year to learn everything. So we really knew everything, and it was, I think it benefited my army career because I fully understood it before I left. Yeah, so when I went to basic training a year later to the parachute regiment, where they make it very clear as soon as you get there, like, we don't need you. You need to prove to us that you need to be here. So when I first got there, I was in a platoon.
Had the war in Afghanistan already started? Was this pre or post?
It was pre. So it was like 2000. It was 2004 when I joined. 2003 when I joined the army. So when I turned up to parachute regiment, it was like 2004.
Okay.
And then
So it was definitely a possibility of going overseas at that point.
Yeah, Afghanistan hadn't really. I mean, they already had been Afghanistan and came back, but it wasn't on the table. The Iraq at the time was on the table. Like, they kept drilling into us like, you guys might be going to Iraq. Okay. And we're like, okay, cool. But Afghanistan hadn't even surfaced our we weren't even thinking about it. Right. We went through the selection process for the parachute regiment, and by week, I think it was like week 16 or something, we were there. We were down to 11 guys in the platoon.
How many did you start with?
Like 30 something.
Okay, and these are guys who've already been training for a whole year, essentially.
Yeah.
So what was selection like?
So it's like pretty grueling. You'd get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, you go through your morning routine straight onto fitness. You might go for like a 5 mile, 10 mile run or something, and then you come back, and then we called it a beasting. It was like an excuse for them to do some character building.
So what would, like, for an external observer, what would have been like the most unfair, it's not about being fair, but what would have been the most unfair thing that happened to you, or the meanest the most character building thing that happened?
Well, we used to get woken up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. They'd run into the room, be like, Joe, before I go any further, in our regiment we called everyone Joe. So the basic trainer, the person who has just joined the army, just called Joe, and I think it was called like joined on enlistment. Right. Yeah, it was like, we don't care what your name is, you are Joe.
You haven't earned the right to your name yet.
You haven't earned the right to your name. So all of us would be like, Joe, get in the corridor. Everyone jumps there, and they're like, okay, one man, one mattress, and get your respirators on, your gas mask. So we all grabbed our mattresses, and then like one guy was against the wall holding the 2 mattresses. You had your gas mask on, and you were just punching the hell out of it. And
at 3 in the morning.
At 3 in the morning, and you're just like, what's going on? Yeah, and then they're like, another corporal would come in and be like, Joe, what the fuck are you guys doing out of bed at 3 in the morning? Put your mattresses away. And you're like, what? And they're like, okay, if you guys want to play silly games, we'll play Corridor Olympics. And they used to get mop buckets and throw mop bucket water down the corridor. And you get the sleeping pads, the foam ones. If you throw it on like a water down, it will slip initially, but then when it starts soaking in, it will be sticky. And then we had races up and down the corridor in the morning. And then the other corporal who did the whole punching thing would come back, and the other corporal would leave, and he'd be like, Joe, I told you to go to bed like an hour ago. What are you still doing? If you want to play games, we can play games. And so the cycle began. And I think it was just to weed out the people that weren't mentally strong, or teach, because I was really young, so it taught me, you know, mental resilience. And at the time, I didn't enjoy it. I was like, why are we getting this? Is bullying, like outright bullying. And then as I got older, I realised, oh, actually no, they were trying to weed out the guys who couldn't stand there and go, you know, because it's going to be a tough time. You're joining a parachute regiment. You know, you're joining a
long history of being elite.
Yeah, it's an elite
unit.
regiment. You're going to be dropped in behind enemy lines with, you know, and you're going to have to be self-sufficient. So that means that there's going to be times when your brain is going, I don't want to be here.
It's not fair that there are 4 enemies up in that, you know, bunker. It's not fair.
And you've just had like a 20-mile
Right.
hike and all this other stuff. So you've got to be mentally prepared. And at the time, I didn't agree on it, but as later on in life, I understood why. So by week 19 or whatever it was, like there was only 11 of us left.
Wow.
So
How many people just quit versus getting injured?
honestly, I don't remember.
Okay.
I was 16.
One day there were 2 Joes, and the next day there's 1.
Yeah, like I'd come back after a fitness session and there's a guy packing his bag, and I can tell you now, I do not remember that guy's name.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know,
Fair enough.
and it just went like that for the whole time. Then when there was 11 of us and we still hadn't done this, there's a selection week called P Company, yeah, and they have all these different exercises, and one's called milling. You know, you stand up against your buddy and you punch each other in the head, but there's no blocking, there's no parrying, there's no nothing. You just have to stand and throw punches. Yeah, and that was a bit nuts. Other things were like carrying a log, carrying a stretcher that weighed 180 pounds or something over distances, and everyone had to pass these events. That's called P Company. And that was a pass or fail event. You could fail one event and still pass the course, but you didn't want to fail 2.
Right.
By the time they had 11 of us before that selection started, they were just like, well, this is like a 45% pass rate. You know, like that means that we're going to have maybe 5, maybe 4 guys who pass this, or maybe 6 guys. But then we've also still got another few weeks afterwards, yeah, that we could still crumble someone and someone leaves. So now we're like, we could be having 4 people on a passing out parade at the end of the whole course, and all your parents come in and there's only 4 of you still on the parade. It looks a bit silly. Yeah, so we all got, I think, all back squatted. So our whole platoon got back squatted, God knows how long, all the way back to like week 6 or something.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, good Lord was the word I used. You know,
Rhyme with the word duck.
yeah. And I was absolutely devastated. Like I remember like sitting there going like, fuck, how am I going to do this again? Like I barely got through. Like I wasn't a grade A student. I was scraping the pass marks, but I was there trying all the time. And then we started this other course, and I had a weak moment and decided I wanted to leave. So I went and spoke to the corporal, and the corporal said, oh, funny that you asked to leave, because I've been told about you. My friend, he passed away now, but he won the Victoria Cross, which is like the highest gallantry medal. And he said, he told my corporal, if he ever leaves, yeah, you're to call me. And called me into the office. I'm on the phone to him. I'm like, yes, corporal. He's just like, look at the corporal now, and I look up and he's ripping my discharge papers up, the ones I wanted to leave. He goes, you're not leaving. And he hung up the phone, and I was like,
Good talk.
I guess I'm not leaving. You know, I mean, if I wanted to, I could have pushed it, but I was like, just having a weak moment, and everyone has those weak days, and I think that's the thing that they're trying to teach you is, you know, we can have our weak days, but on our weak days we still need to show up. Still, you know, it's like jiu-jitsu. You know, like my days when I'm tired and you're like, I'm gonna go to the gym, don't want to be there, but it's that same mental robustness.
So did you stay with the parachute? How long were you in the parachute regiment for? Because you ended up moving into, as I recall, the Special Forces Support Battalion.
Yeah, so I did 2 years in 3 para, which is the parachute regiment's made up of 3 battalions and 1 territorial or reservist. I was in 3 Power. I deployed to Afghanistan with them. Yeah, that was a pretty serious tour. Like, I actually lost one of my good friends in there. The guy who called me, he died in Afghanistan. Like, but it's pretty. His story is just out there. His whole platoon was pinned down, and they couldn't work out how to get out of there. And he stood up, charged them down with a bayonet. And when he was found with 3 dead Taliban around him, his bayonet on, and the rest of the guys managed to get out of there because of this guy. So he won a Victoria Cross, a Gallantry Medal. Yeah, and that was, for me, that was quite traumatic at that point. Because I think I was 18 at that point, and I was just like, whoa, like this, that's the guy.
Was he in charge of that unit?
He was one of the section commanders. Okay. So
talk about leadership, or
like
leading from the front.
He led from the front, and he like I wasn't there on that specific attack, but by accounts of my friends that were like, if he didn't do that, those guys might not be here today. Yeah, so that this one guy managed, and that's the guy that pushed me into the parachute, managed to like direct me into the parachute regiment. He introduced me to skydiving. He was the first guy I ever met who was a skydiver, and he pushed me into that. You know, I didn't skydive at that point, but
where you didn't skydive when you were in the parachute regiment?
No. You don't really skydive. You jump out of a plane attached to.
Oh, okay.
You're like
so you're going to need to explain the difference here, because this gets a big part in your base jumping too.
Yeah, it gets a bit complicated. Like skydiving and base jumping and military parachuting is all complicated stuff, and it's all different.
Right.
Military stuff is a big round parachute. You've probably seen World War II.
Normandy,
running out the door. Now that's called a static line. So you like hook up on this wire that's in the plane, and you walk out the door.
As long as you've hooked up, it's going to open.
Exactly, yeah, and that's why they get the military to do it, because let's be honest, a lot of the infantry units aren't the most intelligent guys in the world. So trying to teach them all these technical stuff about skydiving is, you know, sure they'll learn it, but it's easy insertion. You know, they can just dump a load of guys out there, and those guys can go out there and fight. So it's just a quick insertion, you know, with equipment and getting guys on the ground quickly without putting helicopters and vehicles at risk.
Right. How often does that actually happen? Because I know that a lot of the parachute regiments that were formed in World War II ended up doing mostly tailboard jumps, in the sense that they drive, you know, after the first couple disasters of trying to parachute a whole bunch of guys in, they'd be an elite unit. They'd be inserted by truck, not by airplane. So
yeah, nowadays the it's unlikely we're ever going to see a Normandy or Market Garden or anything like that dumped over, because that's a really stupid idea. Like, you're going to dump it on top of the guys, and they're going to shoot up and kill you.
Right.
You know, so they lost a lot of guys.
It's a turkey shoot.
Yeah. So it's and this is where the elite regiments started coming from. Now they're thinking, well, hold a minute, if we can get these super fit, energetic guys, and we dump them 20 miles away, we can dump them in, they can get all their shit together, get ready for the battle, move in, you know, and hike in, and no one will even know, because you're not going to hear a plane 20 miles away.
Right.
Yeah, so it's going to be a surprise. And that was how the parachute regiment started to build around their attacks. How much we do of it now, it's turned more into like an air assault. So you do
jumping out of a helicopter
with ropes, abseiling, on the back of tailgates, running off the back. Like, there's many ways of assaulting, but we keep the eliteness of the regiment because it's something that we're all super proud of. But there is a huge parachute element to it, because we still have that capability in case.
Sure, you know, in case it's ever needed.
Yeah.
I suppose it's also yet another way of weeding out people who can't, you know, were too scared or just lack some component of being able to jump out of a perfectly good airplane.
They're not perfectly good airplanes. I can tell you now they're not. I've been at some skydive centres, and they're like held together by duct tape, and you're like, whoa. I'm glad I got this parachute on my back. People jet on the planes, like go on holiday to these planes, and you're like, oh, how old is this plane? Oh, this was built in 1961. I'm like,
exactly.
What? Yeah. Have you seen my car from 1961? It's like held together with. Yeah.
Well, I know up north in northern Canada, there's some planes that basically, when they crash, they just go get the essentially the little plate that says this is this plane, this model, and they basically rebuild the whole thing. Having that little plate is licensed to do a giant amount of rebuilding.
Oh wow!
So, even planes that aren't built anymore are still being built.
Yeah.
In the name of, well, no, look, we have the registration plate.
The registration.
It's like when the people renovate a house and they leave one wall standing and they tear everything down, rebuild it all, and then they knock that last wall down. No, this wasn't a new build. This was a renovation.
Yeah, it's like the janitor with the same broomstick for 20 years.
Yes,
it's like 27 new heads and 30 new handles.
The Odysseus' ship or Jason's ship. If you change out every part of a ship, is it still the same ship? We're totally getting into the weeds here. So you went to Afghanistan, you went to Iraq.
Yeah, I went to...
where were you in Iraq and where were you now? Can you say?
Yeah. So in Afghanistan, my first tour in 3 hours in Helmand province. That was the first time the British had... I think the Gurkhas were in there building Camp Bastion at the time, or defending Camp Bastion as it was being built. We were the first unit in there to do operations, open operations in Helmand province. Yeah, so we didn't really know what we were walking into, and neither did the Taliban. They, who the hell are these guys? Mm-hmm. After that tour, I then there was an order that went around saying if anyone wants to join this new Special Forces support group unit, put your name down on this list and you guys might get the opportunity. So 3 battalions, I was in 3 Power. Our 1st battalion ended up getting this role called Special Forces Support Group, and I put my name down. I thought, you know what, I want some of that. Let's see what that's all about. So I put my name down, and then my name was like, yeah, okay, well, go and do that. So I moved over to 1 Power just after 2006. Got into the unit and just found my way. It was a different way of life. They were finding themselves as a brand new unit that didn't really know what they were doing, because initially it was meant to be to support the SAS and their operations, but how are we going to work with them? And
this was being put together in England or put together in Iraq?
Back in England.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were like, it was all put together. I don't know how and who was thinking of, how it was all going to work, but we started to grow, and we growed a different way of how the army expected us to. So we started doing...
What does that mean?
For
example,
they wanted us to be direct support of the SAS, and then...
What would that mean?
Like...
So the SAS goes in to do...
So they go in and get like a hostage rescue, for example, and then we would have the cordons. Okay. So we would like make security for these guys to be safe. And we did that for a while, and then eventually we were doing these like long range recce patrols in Afghanistan, like going out looking for where the Taliban strongholds are, or training the Afghan special forces of how to do stuff. Like we were doing more our own strike ops and our own training, and not just following the SAS around. Mm-hmm. We still offer that. I believe they still offer it now. There's still a time when if the SAS go here, we'll go with them.
Sure.
And then we did stuff like counter-terrorism in the UK, so we would go on like 3 hours notice to move and be prepared in case anything, happened in the UK. Mm-hmm. My second tour was in Afghanistan. My first tour was Afghanistan. My second tour was Iraq, and that was a direct support role with the SAS. And we used to go around and pick up high-end Al-Qaeda targets.
Right.
And that was a pretty interesting tour, actually. And, it was my second operational tour, and I was now... I could see the bigger picture. I could see why we're doing this. I wasn't just rabbit in the headlights, like, what's going on? Why? I don't get it. Like, I started to enjoy it. And I can tell you now that, like, Iraq was... one of my favourite tours I did when I was in the army. It was...
what years were you there?
I think I was there 2009, 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, we had such a good time. We worked direct with the SAS. We had Delta Force that we were working with. We had the US Rangers that we were working with. And we were just going out, getting these targets and coming back. And it was like super interesting. And the guys I was with, like, it was like going out on a camping trip with the boys, you know, it was brilliant. We were out there for 6 months. But that was probably one of my best tours I did.
I mean, that's always say in the fire department, it's, again, you're like, yes, it's a night shift. It's also a sleepover with the boys, right?
Yeah.
It's a day shift. It's also a barbecue with the boys. But the idea of then having these close connections and somebody getting badly hurt or injured, that's the flip side of that coin, right? On the one hand, you're really, really tight. You're really good friends with these people. You spend a ton of time together. You know what's going on in their lives. You know just how to tease them. They know just how to tease you. So you work together better. But at the same time, if somebody gets hurt or injured or killed, it really is like losing a member of your family.
Yeah, like some of these guys, like I know them more than some of my biological family. Like these guys that you know everything about them. You know, like you even know when they're playing away
so
from...
the third girl you ever slept with.
Yeah, exactly.
She had a mole back of her shoulder.
Oh, you knew so much about these guys and what they were doing, and you know which girl they with. If you could keep up with half these guys, they were just like, yeah, that's right. You know. How do you keep 5 girlfriends? Like, I struggle with one.
Yeah. Well, they've got to say, if it's anything like the fire department, there's your life, and then there's the responsibility to provide entertainment for everybody else. So these guys with 5 girlfriends, 4 of them might be imaginary to provide entertainment to everybody else. Yeah. It's possible.
Yeah, we're not there with them to vouch.
Yeah, exactly. I want a signed affidavit from each one. Unlikely.
But the stitch-ups were like cracking. Like I still tell stories.
Sorry, a stitch-up?
Stitch-up, like, you know, like playing pranks on each other, and we had this
is an English term.
Yeah, it's an English term. I'm still struggling with, like,
no,
in Canada.
That's why I'm here. I'm a
translator. Like, probably subtitle me as well. No, I remember this one time where this guy was just getting on my nerves a bit too much, and I was like, "You're such a prick. Like, why are you doing this?" And you know, you can get under each other's skin and whatever. And I looked at my buddies and I was like, "How do we get this guy back?" And one of my friends had this hot sauce, and it was like it was called the bomb.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had a bunch.
Half a billion Scoville units of heat.
Yeah, like it was horrible. Like I've had like spoonfuls of it and thrown up everywhere. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get this guy back. And he had Aquafresh toothpaste in his like wash bag. So when he was out work doing something on the vehicle, I went in his wash bag, I grabbed out this Aquafresh. I had a needle, like a syringe, and a hot sauce and stuff. And you know, it's like red, white, blue.
Yeah.
I injected the red. Okay. Now, I'm only 18 years old, so I'm like, yeah, this will get him in the morning. Yeah, but the needle's about this long. So I'm injecting it in, pull it out, and put it on. And everyone knew I did this. And everyone's like, okay, when's it going to happen? So the next, I'm like, tomorrow morning. Check him tomorrow. And tomorrow morning comes, he brushes teeth. Nothing. The next day, nothing. I'm like, no way. Maybe the toothpaste cancelled the hot sauce out.
18-year-old chemist trying to figure this out.
I'm trying to think this out. I'm like, not the most intelligent guy anyway, but I'm like, okay, why isn't this working? And then one day we got a phone call, like someone ran in and was, guys, it's like 4 a.m, so a base has been attacked. We're like, we need to get going, grab all your kit, let's go. So I was like, okay, so I'm grabbing my kit, and you don't know the next time you're going to brush your teeth, so I run in there and everyone's brushing their teeth in the toilet, and I look over and it hit. This guy's like, and I'm looking, I'm like, oh, what a bad timing that is. And he's now like screaming, and we're like brushing our teeth and we're helping him get his gear ready. We get on the helicopter and he's got a sick bag and he's like, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, buddy.
Oh, you admitted it.
We didn't tell him then.
No, of course not.
He was so pissed. Like, he's probably going to listen to this and be like, it was you.
Must kill. Do you have any close calls in Iraq?
Yeah, not in Iraq. Like, Iraq was pretty good because we were very strategic of how we were doing it. My third tour to Afghanistan was the time that it started to get more kinetic. It was from 2006 to my last tour in 2010. so much had happened in the war, and the Taliban had changed their tactics, and we went back out there, and it was a different country to the first time I went, and it was just like every day we were on the ground, it was like we were doing something, and we were getting quite kinetic with the Taliban.
So when you say kinetic, you mean shooting wars?
Shooting wars, shooting back and forth. Like being in Afghanistan is not like the war movies where you're going to be playing Call of Duty every single day.
Right.
You can go days with nothing.
Yeah.
But there was more often that we were getting into these little skirmishes with the Taliban. And I just remember one time I was told to go and speak to someone else, but just run across this, like, not open ground, but it lowered down, and I just had to go back because I was in charge of the radio, and it was like, just go over there and tell him what the thing is, our radios aren't working. So as I started running, all hell broke loose, and I dived on the ground, and I was like, oh my God, like, this sucks. Like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden I see this American guy who was attached to us running over like a scene out of Baywatch. Like, what the fuck are you doing? He dives down and are you okay? I'm like, yeah, but why did you just run out there? Like, you're not going to get a medal here, buddy. And he's like, I thought you got shot. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. All right. So I'm lying there and I'm just like, well, okay, what do we do? And we were a little bit stuck. So I was like, okay. I had my little jet boil in my little jet boil cooker. I put it out. And he's like, what are you doing? I said, well, making a cup of tea. And I put it in there, like...
So you're safe where you are, but you can't move.
But I couldn't move. Okay. Like, I was just like... And I had to just leave. And on my radio, I could hear our platoon commander just saying, okay, just hang on there, and, like, you can make your way back when we do it. So I pulled it out quickly. And this American hasn't got earpieces, so he can't hear the timings. Yeah, so he's like, okay, 2 minutes, get ready to move.
This fucking crazy British guy cooking up tea in the middle of it.
I'm like, you want some? He's like, no. I'm like, okay. Threw it away, put it in, and I'm here like, okay, move now. And I'm like, buddy, we can't wait here all day. Let's fucking go. And we just start going, he's like, what the hell just happened? And I'm like, well, and
this is how we roll.
It's how we roll, but it goes back, and like we like to make our regiment like to have this image of having this crazy image, like not crazy, but just like you guys are different, yeah, and just had a different persona.
So when did you start getting into the base jumping? Because I mean, world champion base jumper, we haven't really mentioned it yet.
No.
When did you start getting into the skydive, as opposed to the jumping out of a plane and having the parachute open automatically? When did this start becoming your choice, and you started getting into jumping off of, forget planes, buildings, antennas?
So one of the guys in the battalion had this huge poster, absolutely huge poster of a guy base jumping off a building. Yeah, and this guy's name's Chris McDougall. Or Dukes. He's a Australian. Well, we're now friends, but I saw this poster and I was like, whoa, that's insane. And he was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I'm like, okay. And he's like, for me to practice, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this rope swinging stuff. You know, like, drill holes into these bridges or make anchor points.
Oh, right.
Swing under the bridges.
Right.
I was like, well, I want some of that. So I went over and I was jumping off this bridge in a little town in South Wales called Merthyr Tydfil. Like a random bridge that I was just jumping off and swinging underneath, and then we're like, it just wasn't. I was like, this just isn't base jumping. Like, let's get into this. And eventually, like, this guy he went and just, I don't know if he did a course or did one but he never like chased it. And I was like, I need to chase this. How do I do it? So I reached out to a skydive center, and I was in Iraq. And I remember I had 2 weeks off for R&R to come home, see your family. And I'd landed in Brize Norton, which is in Oxford. I got on the train, I went to Heathrow and flew to south of Spain. I was like, I am doing this. Yeah. I remember flying out there, and I'd like just got back from Iraq, and I'm like, I'm going back in 2 weeks. So I need to get my skydive license. So I, flew down there, and then just started my accelerated freefall course. So you just jump out with 2 instructors side by side, and you learn the curriculum until you're an A license. And I turned up and they said, so what's your goals? So I want to be a base jumper. Yeah, and that's like the equivalent of someone walking
into a boxer-sized class and going, I want to be a UFC champ. Yeah.
Yeah, and now I'm like, what an idiot. I'm that newbie guy who's like, I want to be the UFC champion. And it's like, and everyone laughed at me. I was like, yeah, I want to be a base champion. They're like, okay, buddy, one step at a time.
We'll take your money.
And I was like, okay. Everyone laughed at me, and I guess they didn't really know how driven I actually was. When I set a goal, I'm like, I'm going to that goal. Like, I don't care what it takes, but I will be there. And I started the AFF course, and they were like, so you still want to do this at the end? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And then they just watched me grow as a skydiver. And I was still in the army for a couple of years.
So to become a base jumper, presumably you start out with your free fall certification, but there's no base jumping certification. Nobody's out there saying, here's how to jump off a building.
Well, you can do courses.
Oh, really?
Or, yeah, like I run...
Who's dumb enough to run that? Like the liability of like...
Me?
You run... Okay. All right, before you started teaching these courses...
There's actually not that many.
Okay.
And we call it more like...
I bet not.
Yeah. But it's more of a mentor program rather than a course.
Okay.
Yeah, so... But there are guys out there that run courses on a regular basis, and,
really?
you know, you have to have like a criteria. Yeah,
Okay.
so most people would say like around 200 to 500 skydives.
Okay.
And in those skydives, you need to have been, competent at various different disciplines.
Right.
Yeah, and then you could come onto the course. Now that could take you a few years. You know, like it's not easy to get 200-300 jumps.
How long did it take you?
A year.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I had focused. Like,
right.
I was eating ramen noodles and jumping every day. You know,
right.
like it was what I wanted. But then I was trying to get on a course, you know, like a base jumping course, and everyone's like, "Oh, no, you're out in America. Oh, we're not running one this year." And I was like, "How am I going to do this?" And at that point, I was going to Afghanistan for the third time, and I was like, I need to do this before I go. Like,
right.
You know, so I asked everyone, and then I started asking base jumpers who were at this openly about base jumpers in the skydive center. I said, anyone want to take me? And they're like, no. I was like, oh, okay, shit. Okay. And then I started listening to where these guys were going. And I highly recommend no one who gets into base jumping just do what I do, because how I learned was dumb. I found out where they were doing this base jump, and then I went there with my base jumping rig, and I climbed up this like electricity pylon that was 470 foot, and I just looked over and I, you know, watched enough YouTube.
Nobody else around?
No one else around. Stupid.
You've been to YouTube University?
I was a YouTuber, you know. I was like, yeah, cool. I watched it, and I got up there and I'm like, okay. And I did all these checks, but I was so paranoid. And in the military, you do all these checks and drills, and I'm like, okay, the wind is good, this, and I'm like, I'm using common sense, which isn't. I'm not again because I'm up there without any instruction. So it's like, whatever. I jumped off, opened the parachute, and I was like, whoa, that's it. I landed safely, and then I repacked the parachute, went up a second time, and did exactly the same. And then a couple of weeks went by, and I just didn't tell anyone. I was like, I'm not telling anyone because I'll get shunned.
Right.
Yeah. And then a friend of mine who was in my battalion, just got back from a base jumping course, and I was like, hey buddy, I've got 2 jumps. Yeah. Any chance that we can go out? He's like, no, we can go out, and I can try and regurgitate what I was told. So me and this guy just hanged our heads together, and we were like, we should not tell anyone that we're doing this, because if we get anyone in the scene notices this, like, we're gonna get shunned from the community. Like, so we just went a little bit, just jump. No one.
It's one thing to, like, for a couple of guys to watch a bunch of videotape and to start rolling, doing jiu-jitsu in their basements, because the consequences of really screwing it up are breaking your arm.
Yeah.
Or maybe, you know, tearing your ACL. That's kind of worst case scenario. Your worst case scenario is instant death, or maybe total mangling, and I'm not sure which is worse.
Yeah.
Worse.
I don't know, maybe the high tempo of what I was doing in the military, you know, had desensitize myself to what I was, you know.
Well, it's interesting you were saying that the base jumping is a more of a mental program, because and like not losing your mind and forgetting to pull a cord when you jump off, you know, whatever the building or the antenna, whereas you'd already been exposed to high levels of stress and deconditioned to doing, you know, functioning in a high stress environment.
Yeah, I mean, base jumping isn't that complicated. You know, we're not that. Most people think we're adrenaline junkies and being like these crazy loose guys. Well, actually, like there's some of the nerdiest guys in the world who are like, and if you can do everything, like I learned base jumping in a sense of the way that I learned to do the military. If you do everything exactly right, yeah, you have a better chance. Yeah. Now there are guys out there that are doing everything exactly wrong, and they get themselves in trouble. But it's like what I was saying. I was
just doing
wrong.
everything exactly right doesn't guarantee you that you're going to survive. Or that it
just
lessens
gives you
the chances.
a better odds.
Yeah.
You know, and
So you were saying about guys doing everything wrong and getting into trouble,
and they get themselves in trouble. But you can do everything right and get yourself in just as equal trouble. You know, so it's some back and forth. You know, it's a game that you need to decide, pick and choose. For me, it's risk versus reward.
Right.
You know, nowadays I don't jump off antennas. Like, for me, I've been injured, and if I ever got injured again and I looked up at this antenna, I'd be like, this is just a shitty antenna in the middle of a field. Whereas if I jump off the Chief and I get injured, touch wood I don't, but I'll look back up and I can be
the Chief being this giant sort of El Capitan-ish type of rock in Squamish in your hometown.
In my hometown, which is iconic. And if I look back up and I'm injured, and you sit there and go, well, actually, this is one of the most beautiful places in the world. Unfortunately, I'm injured, but I'm injured doing something that I really wanted to do.
Right.
You know, I wasn't just doing it just to get a number, you know, an additional jump number on my resume as such.
Well, you talked about risk versus reward. This might seem like a stupid question. We all know what the risk is. What is the reward for you? Jumping off of a really high object, but you know, not a plane. So the chances of hitting that object are significantly higher. No time to recover if things go wrong. What's the reward for you? It's
like accomplishment. Yeah, you know, like me jumping off the Chief nowadays. Like there's not. I go up there and I'm not a big fan of heights. You know.
Really?
Yeah. So for me,
so maybe that gets your adrenal juices going.
Yeah, and I also have this weird thing about I'm scared to do a lot. Like compared to a lot of other base jumpers, you know, who are a little bit more confident, they go walk up to the edge and they'll jump off. You know, I get there, I'm scared, and my buzz from the sport is, you know, getting up there, looking at my gear, making sure everything's right. It's like a mission for me. It's like everything has to fall in line. So I get up early, you know, I drive there, I hike up in the time frame. I use it as a bit of fitness. I then get up there, I check all my gear, I put the gear on in the same order every time. I walk to the edge, and then I'm like, oh crap, this is scary. And you look down and you spit over the edge, and then you're just trying to judge what the wind's doing. And then you walk a little bit closer and your heart starts to race, and then you're like, okay, everything's good. If like the winds are good, like I feel good, I can take a deep breath and just clear everything. And this is where I get the most reward from, like managing to clear myself and then stepping up and doing what I'm scared to do and doing it scared. And I get to the edge, and my favourite part about base jumping is when I'm about to leave the cliff, you know, like I'm all crunched up, ready to explode into the jump, but my feet haven't left the cliff, you know, but at that point I can't go, oh shit, I don't want to go, you know, like I'm past that point of no return.
You've already started tipping over the edge.
I'm tipping over the edge and I'm just about to jump into it, but I'm still connected to the cliff. And for me, it's like a tiny 1/8 of a second, but for me that whole thing is like my enjoyment. It's like, you now have to give 110% for the rest of this flight, because it needs your whole attention. So it doesn't matter at that point if you had an argument with your friend or your wife or you're in debt or whatever. You're like, this is the true moment right now that matters, you know, because if you fuck up now, like, it doesn't matter for the rest of your life. So for me, it's a whole moment of like, I'm truly living in this moment.
How often do you walk away? You get up there, you spend all that time hiking up there, getting your gear ready, and you go, nah, this line is frayed, or this wind just isn't right, or I just don't feel right today, and go back.
It's funny. I'm super paranoid, and I have a 3-strike rule. Now, these 3 strikes, some people laugh at me because they're stupid. If my alarm set as, you know, 5:45 and I press snooze and I get up at 5:50, that's a strike. You know, like, I should have just woken up. You know, if I get there and I'm like, I thought it's a bit windy on the ground, and I get nervous, and I'm like, okay, that's another one. I hike up, and then everything's perfect from then on out. I'm like, okay, I'm going to jump. But I'm always looking for an excuse not to jump.
Okay.
I always like this idea of, if I can look for excuses why I should not make this base jump, yeah, and I've eliminated all those factors, yet everything's still here, then I'm good to go.
Okay.
And that's my logic. And not all base jumpers think like this, but for me, that's the way that I want to make it happen. Because then, if anything did happen, like, I jump and then there's like a gust, or you know, anything happens, I get injured, I can be like, you know what, I can hold my hands up, I eliminated as many factors I can do, and this freak thing that happened just happened.
Well, when you're talking about going through your checklists and almost your rituals, it strikes me as very, very similar to tennis players, say, who, you know, and I don't play tennis, but come up, they bounce the ball twice, they touch the ball to the racket, they bounce the ball twice more, and then they serve. And they do that every single time, every single match. It just helps them get into that state of flow. It helps them get, you know, it's part of their trigger for optimal performance. Yeah. So I imagine that you're going through your checklist and having that ritual and setting it for 5:45 are all the triggers that need to line up to get you into that headspace to do it as safely as possible.
Exactly. And I'm coming into 10 years in the sport now, you know, and I'm the little tics that I've had from the beginning. You know, like, if people watch me on an exit point, and I'm always touching the handle with the parachute, because essentially you can have the best wingsuit flight of your life, but if you don't deploy a parachute, like, it's your last. So for me, it's a case of, I'm always touching this. I know where it is. I've thrown it so many times, done so many, but every time I get up there and I'm like, tap, 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 and everyone's like, my best friend, who I jump with all the time, and he's like, still in the same place. And I'm like, yeah, it is.
So how did you become, like, I'd heard of base jumping, I'd seen base jumping, I didn't know that there was a competitive circuit for base jumping. How did you get into that? And then how did you climb to the top of that? And how can there be competition for something that's illegal?
It's not illegal.
No?
No. Like, depending on where you are, like, a lot of places in America, it's illegal. You know, like, but they have their own little weird rules sometimes. But base jumping, like, here in Squamish, is not illegal. Like, it's... Okay. The most thing that most people get caught on is trespassing. Okay. Now, trespassing... I
never gave you permission to enter my building, go to the top and jump off of it.
Exactly, and different countries have different trespassing laws.
Right.
Like, some places it's like a criminal offence, others it's a civil offence,
right,
which is a slap on the wrist. So, and other places are just like, oh, yeah, well, we got no sign saying that you can't, so maybe we'll put a sign up now.
Okay.
You know, so it's just depending on where you're going. So that's why when we travel, we try and meet base jumpers of that area to try and work out what we can and can't do and how we can do it. But yeah, the actual base jumping circuit, there was, at the time, like a few years ago, there was loads of different competitions in Turkey and Spain, and we could just travel around these circuits in the summer and do these little competitions. They were never...
Is that funded by people who are watching, or like, how's that? Where's the money?
It was like self-funded.
Okay.
And there wasn't too much. But these events were out there, and people were trying to put how do we
How do we get Red Bull?
Yeah, exactly. And how do we compete in this? And in our sport, there's like two types of people. There's people who compete, and there's people that like have no interest. They're like, well, this is a free spirit sport. Like, I don't want to compete. Like, whatever. But me personally, I believe that competition is great for growth. You know, in any sport. So in base jumping, some people were like, yeah, I like to compete just to see how I do against other people. And the tournaments that we went into around 2012 was jumping off buildings or bridges, and you would have to jump off for 2 seconds. So in the building, you'd jump off the cliff or jump off the building, and then you'd, in that position for 2 seconds, reach out, and the 2 seconds stops when you let go of that pilot chute, which is the small parachute that opens the big one. So someone's there counting the 2 seconds. So if you get like 1.5 seconds, yeah, you get deducted points.
So it's kind of like a game of chicken with the ground. Because if I wanted to win, I'd go 3 seconds, but then I'd hit the ground.
But if you get 3 seconds, you're going to get disqualified because there's like a bracket. Because after 3 seconds, it's unsafe.
Right.
Yeah, whereas like I think the building at the time, you could the mathematical equation is like if you free fall for 7 seconds, you would hit the ground, and that would be it. So 2 seconds is a decent time. You know, is a safe time to be jumping off, and it's
so you're falling for 2 seconds. Now you deploy the chute, and then how long till the big chute opens?
It's pretty instantaneous.
So pop.
Yeah, so you throw it, and it's like pop. The parachute opens.
So 1 second to open.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then there's someone on top of the exit point with this, like, there was a big plastic see-through thing that had degrees. So like 5, 10, 15 to like 90, and then 180 degrees meant you got disqualified. And they would open it, and they would line it over your body, and when the parachute opened, you would get deducted points at every point that you were slightly off.
Because you're trying to get away from the building, obviously.
You're trying to get away from it. So if it's on heading...
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you would have it. And then they would judge you on how safe you were coming into land. So if you were like juddery around, you know, you're like, well, you don't look like you know what you're doing. And they would fly you around, and then we had this big disc, and there would be like a little disc in the centre about a dime size, and then it would be like 1 metre, 2 metre, 10 metre rings, and you would try and land dead centre to that.
So a game of darts with a human body.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And you would come down and you would try and touch it with your, you know, with your foot. But coming off to land, when you come to land on a parachute, is like sometimes just stepping off a curb. If you mistime it a little bit, you might have to run.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just a timing factor.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, so the first tournament that I ever went to, I came 16th. It was in Greece, and these tournaments aren't like very serious because there's no
money,
real money in the sport. So it's all just fun against your buddies, but for a reason to be able to jump off this building, we had to have a competition.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so it was an excuse. Yeah, so it wasn't very serious.
Best limerick recited between opening your chute and landing on the ground.
Yeah,
extra points for being super dirty.
So yeah, we did that, and I just jumped around the circuits, and eventually I went to Benidorm in Spain. If you've ever been to Benidorm, it's full of English people who go on holiday and drink their heads off for the weekend, and then they go home. But it's like a tiny little town in Spain. And we were jumping off this hotel, and the landing area was like this 10-meter circle, and there was a swimming pool, a bridge, palm trees, walls, and basically my mindset was if you don't land on that target, you're going to get hurt. So I was just so adamant, like I wasn't even thinking about the competition. Like I'd go up there and say, oh, I'm ready to go, and I'd just like step off, and I was so calm because I wasn't thinking about trying to land on it. That I was like, I just need to land on it because it's the only place that's safe. And I kept landing, and it was like, oh, I'm doing all right. And my name was creeping up the scoreboard. And then at the end of the thing, there was like a final one morning. So I walked up to the top, and the guy that I was stood next to on the exit point. It was me and him against each other on the final. I look over, and it was the guy that was on that poster of my friend.
Oh, so cool.
So I was stood there, and I was just like, crazy how in that time from seeing you on a poster, I'm now stood next to you in a final of a little competition we're having in arse and nowhere of Spain. And he goes, do you want to go first? And I was just like, no, you go first. And he was like, okay. So he went off. 2-second delay, solid. Canopy opened on heading, perfect. His canopy handling was awesome. He lands, and it looked like he landed dead center to the on the target. And I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to beat him. And everyone was laughing, and we're like, well, still second. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. So I ran off. I was so relaxed. I just canopy open. I flew ready. I was like, whatever. And as I came in, my heel touched dead center of the target. Yeah, which was 1 centimeter, because I was dead center and he was 1 centimeter off the target. Oh my God. Yeah, he looks at me and he was just like, bro. Yeah, so that was...
Meet your heroes and crush their dreams. But, okay, so that's the good side. What about you got banged up really, really badly. What happened there?
Yeah, so that was 2012. That was also a point in my life when I was a bit of a douchebag. You know, I won that, and I was the British champion in in the skydiving discipline. You know, and my ego was like growing. I was fucking 22 or something, and you know, and I was a paratrooper. Oh, God. You know, I was an arse. You know, I understand why people didn't like me then. And
you're at that age when young men are invulnerable and are going to live forever too.
Exactly, and you know, and unfortunately, any injury or thing that happens base jumping usually or skydiving is usually human error. And unfortunately for me was human error, ego, a lot of shit combined. With some bit of unluckiness. And it was probably something that was treated me and humbled me a lot more over the years. But as I was jumping out of this little microlight. Yeah, it was like a little craft with an engine on the back. And I jumped out of my wingsuit and I was like, I'm going to open high, you know, just...
So this is not base jumping now, this is wingsuiting.
Yeah, it was
jump cordless, grinding the crack kind of stuff.
Yeah, so that's wingsuit base jumping is a subdivided base jump. So base jumping is an acronym for building, antenna, span, and earth. Yeah, so you can jump off any of those 4 objects, and we try and categorize what we do. So if you're jumping downtown, you're jumping a building. Yeah, and the chief in Squamish is Earth. Yeah, so, and then a span is a bridge, antenna. And then under those, you can jump, if it's high enough, you can jump off a wingsuit, off any of those objects if you can do it. And that's wingsuit base jumping. Or wingsuit skydiving, you'll have a main parachute and a reserve. Yeah, so it gets a bit, base jumping is you're jumping off a fixed object.
Right.
Yeah, but you can wingsuit base jump, it's the same thing. I was jumping out of this microlight with a base jumping parachute with my wingsuit. So that's a weird area because it's an aircraft, it's not a base jump, it's whatever. I ended up flying a little above this Turkish countryside, and I ended up throwing my parachute out, it opened. I was like, okay, cool. I looked down and I'm, you know, my predetermined landing area, I was like, oh, I'm not getting there. And I looked at a couple other places, and I was like, I'm too far from these, and I'm trying to what am I going to do?
So you're above a town here?
No, countryside, in a Turkish countryside. It's like a rugged desert countryside. So
rocks, a few trees.
Rocks, trees, you know.
Goats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I was a goat herder that found me. I was looking down, I was like, well, okay, I can land there, fuck, I just won that competition where I landed on a disc. I can land anywhere. So I was like, okay, so bring it down. I'm like, this is going to be tight, but I can do it. And as I came in to land, my foot slipped in between two rocks.
Oh no.
And then I fell with the momentum of the parachute because I timed it just wrong. So as I mentioned earlier, where you can either step off a curb or you can run it out,
Right.
I timed it wrong where I had to run it out. So as my ankle got stuck in between two rocks, the momentum of the parachute where I should have been running kept going. So the ankle broke straight away. The wrist broke, the femur broke, the elbow dislocated and broke. I broke my shoulder, tore the rotator cuff, and then I smashed my head pretty bad.
Oh my God.
And I was lying there and I'm like, I think, I don't remember any of it, but my video was me just screaming like, help, help, but no one's around because the people were waiting for me in the parking lot. So I'm now lying there and I'm like, shit.
The guy in the microlight isn't looking to see what happened to the guy who just jumped out of the plane?
It was like, he's 3,000 feet in the sky.
Okay.
So he's now trying, you can't see people.
Okay, fair enough.
And then the camera guy who was on the ground was like, well, where's Jamie? And then the other guy's like, where is he? And then now they're like, okay, what's going on? And I was just lying there, just like in so much pain. I was like in and out of this weird state. And I was like assessing myself because I'm a medic as well. So I was like reaching down, looking at myself. I'm like, okay, I broke my arm, broke my leg. And then I'm like feeling here and I'm like, I broke my pelvis. And you can bleed, internally bleed and die from that. And I was like, well...
Had you broken pelvis or was that just a snapped femur?
It was a snapped femur.
Just
a snapped femur.
Was it compound? Was it sticking out? Or
No, it wasn't sticking out.
Okay, well that's small blessings.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff and I was just like, whoa, okay, cool. So I'm like assessing myself, counting my breaths, my pulse.
Oh, this is what going into shock feels like.
I was like, and I tell you what, going in and out of shock while trying to assess yourself is insane. And then the one thing that did shock me though was, I was like, well, I need to crawl. I remember there's a road over here. So I need to so I reached down to my leg and I pulled it out of the rock. And I watched my ankle just... I was just like, this is... Still one of the most disturbing things I've seen. And I started to crawl. And I would crawl, I'd shimmy my body and then move my arm, move my leg. And I'd just be in so much agony. And I had the parachute on and it was still I don't know how far I crawled. It was probably not that far at all. But... my mind was, you need to do something. Right. Because if I just laid there, I would have...
Just died.
Yeah. So I was like, keep moving. Is
the parachute still attached to you?
Yeah, it's still attached to me. It's it's draped over a tree. And I'm like, there's no way I can get it off. So I'm just like, I'll just keep crawling. Yeah, my mind was just, I need the survival mode. And eventually a guy, some random Turkish guy found me and I was just shouting the mayor's name at him and the mayor spoke English. So he called up the mayor, the paramedics came up, they all scooped me up on this stretcher and I'm...
An hour after?
Yeah, it was 35 minutes. Oh. So 35 minutes on my own. I tell you that gives you plenty of time to rework your life. I laid there and I was like, whoa, I had a moment where I was like, you might die here. Yeah. If you think this is a pelvis, I looked at my watch and it was 10 a.m. and I'm like, at 11 I could be dead. And it's a weird way of thinking about what I'm doing. And I laid there and thought, well, you know what? I was brought up Roman Catholic. I was like, you better say something to God in case there is a God. And I started Psalm 23, as you walk through the valley of shadow of death. But I couldn't remember it. So I broke into the Coolio song. As you walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I sang the whole song.
Better than nothing, I suppose.
So I'm telling you now, every time I hear that song, I'm like, and then the paramedics found me.
But you're nowhere near a major trauma hospital at this point.
Absolutely not. It was a 4.5 hour ambulance ride.
On a smooth road, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. Up and down mountains, on a logging road.
Here's some washboard.
Yeah. I was on the...
Sorry about that bump.
I'm on the back of the ambulance and I'm like, I need Entonox, I need morphine, I need this. you know, and they're like, we take it, we don't speak English.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, Entonox, you know.
Did they have any of that? Entonox pain medication?
Pain medication, they did.
Oh, okay.
But they had this, like, they must have had a contraindication of, you know, what they can and can't give me at the time. Which I think is a bit dated in their thing, because I think they were like, oh, you've got a head injury, and I'm like, whatever. But I'm like, well, I need some pain meds of some sort. I was in the back of the ambulance, and in there was a girl I was seeing at the time and an interpreter. And I said to him, okay, you see that blue bottle there? I need you to I talked him through. He managed to hook up the full set, the bite switch, everything. And one of the paramedics looked round and was like, "Rah!" Slammed on the brakes, jumped out, and we like took the Entonox in the front of the ambulance, and they were like, no. And I'm lying there going, oh, how far's he out of the hospital?
That was a good 5 seconds of Entonox.
They end up stopping.
I actually had a much less worse mountain biking accident near Squamish, where you're living now.
Yeah.
Crashed, like ruptured part of my kidney. The way I fell, was bleeding internally, and I remember that long. For me, it was like 40 minutes down a logging road, going to the Squamish Hospital, and coaching my then girlfriend, like, okay, when I get to the hospital, tell them I can't breathe, because I know that if you tell people, like, there are various things that the hospital looks for. If you go, I think I broke something, okay, you'll go over here and we'll wait. Yeah. But if you can't breathe or you're having chest pain, you get a lot more attention. Just gaming the system out as much as I could to.
But how was that 40-minute ride? What was going through your mind?
Horrendous. Like, this really hurts. And then not being able to breathe, right, as you start hyperventilating. Okay, sorry. So you're heading for where? Istanbul, or you're heading for?
No, we were heading to a place called Malatya.
Okay.
Yeah, and
heard of it, never been.
Yeah, and there's not much there.
A hospital?
A hospital. Is
morphine?
Like, pretty much it,
okay.
Yeah. And it was like a 4.5 hour ride, and I remember, the ambulance stopped. And I'm like, why are we stopped? And I'm getting angry now. I'm like, I'm in and out of shock the entire time, and I'm just like, why are we stopped? We need to get going. And they were like, they opened the back door, and the ambulance drivers stopped for lunch.
No.
Yeah. I was so pissed.
If I had a rocket launcher.
I just laid there. I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, we need some food. And I'm like,
Union.
I'm like, what? and I said, oh, all right then. Well, don't get me anything, you know. And I was just so pissed. They came back and were like, oh, okay. And they ran back and they got me a bottle of Fanta and a packet of chips.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, great. Okay. So I was like, I was like just sipping on Fanta, and I can't stand Fanta now. But I got to the hospital, and honestly, the doctor that walked up to me, was just this, like, do you know The Simpsons? You got that, hello everybody.
Yeah.
The doctor looked like him, sounded like him. Yeah, and I was like, oh shit, we're in The Simpsons.
Did they do all the surgeries and stuff there, or was their job just to stabilize you back to England? Yeah,
they stabilized me. There was things like my ankle needed stabilizing, or I could have lost it.
Sure. So it just splinted you?
No, they operated it. They put a screw in the ankle to get it stable for me to get back to England. I think they did my femur. They were like, you need surgery in there instantly.
They plated that?
They put a rod into the bone, and then my shoulder, they put a plate and screws in there, and the rest of it they just like taped me up and put me on a stretcher and got me on a plane to Istanbul, and then Istanbul to London.
How long were you in the first hospital?
7 days.
Okay.
And it was, I'd only describe it as a prison cell. Yeah, it was so hot, there was no air conditioning. You know, I was trying to get someone to buy me a fan. There was nothing. It was just scorching hot, and I was just lying there, and there was no one was coming in and washing you or anything. And I asked someone, how do we get a bed bath or something, like I stink and I'm in hospital. And they went, oh, your family's meant to come and do this. And I was like, well, my family's not going to be here. So we ended up paying. I was like, okay, can we pay a nurse to do it? And they're like, oh, no women can touch you because, it's a Muslim area. And I was like, okay, well, can I get a male nurse? And they're like, well, we have 2 janitors and they can clean you. I was like, okay.
I got my mop. Back to your mop.
So yeah, we paid these janitors like $10. And I tell you what, like, solid. They came in and they like helped me, like wash me down and whatever else, like help me. Like,
should have gone to a Turkish steam bath.
Yeah.
If you hadn't been condemned to a hospital and unable to move. But.
Exactly, and these guys were super nice. We gave them, like, one of them had a kid, so we ended up like giving her a teddy bear, these guys were like, they were like, what are we doing? But it was a little bit different culturally. Eventually I then managed to get into a private hospital in Istanbul, so we got flown out there, and that was a little bit more what we know in the Western world as a hospital. And then back to England and had more surgeries and realignments of bones and stuff like that.
So then you never jumped again, right?
Oh, yeah, never. No.
Not this morning.
Not that day.
How long did it take you to jump again?
7 months, I believe.
Wow.
I did my first skydive after the accident.
And what was that like?
Oh, it was crazy. Like, it was nuts. We ended up making a film called Back to Basics. It's on a thing called Epic TV. And I wanted to show my recovery and what it was all about. And the right steps, because like I mentioned earlier, like I got into base jumping the complete wrong way, like the most stupidest way you could ever do it. So I wanted to press the reset button. I've just been humbled, you now need to have a new outlook on how you're going to do this sport. And this for me was my reset button. So I was like, okay, well, I'm an experienced jumper at this point, but I'm going to start again. I'm going to do it properly. So I started again. I went into the wind tunnel, the tubes where you can jump in, and I was like seeing how my body adjusted. Then I got it back into skydiving and started to like have a different outlook on different things in skydiving. And then I went base jumping again. And then eventually my first major wingsuit low jump again was into a demo.
What's a demo?
A demo's, you've seen like a stadium with, thousands of people in before a football game or rugby game, and you see these guys parachuting in and they land with a ball or whatever else. So my first low jump out of an aircraft with a base rig and a wingsuit was pretty much, I believe, exactly a year to the date of me having the accident and standing on there being like, this is identical, and I was, it was a bit of a mind blown thing, like, okay, so this is really scary. But we did it, and then, it was just an intense.
Was that with an audience there, with a crowd?
Yeah, with, I don't know how many thousands of people, but there was thousands of people watching. Okay. And then you eventually just come in.
Did they know the story?
No.
Okay.
No.
You're just some crazy guy.
Just some guy jumping in Syria, And it was, for me, it was this whole experience was like a reset into the sport. And then I started to jump with a different mindset on, rather than just being gung-ho and jumping anything just because it needed jumping. I started thinking about like, I'm going to be doing quality jumps over quantity. I'm not chasing jump numbers. I want to go and do one jump off the Chief in the morning with my friends and have a good time, hiking up, talking, flying together, opening, landing, and then going to have some Caesars or beers afterwards and really enjoy what we were doing.
Okay, so I should have asked this earlier. How do you fund this lifestyle? Like, it seems like a pretty nice lifestyle to travel. Greece, Spain, Turkey, jump. I'm sure these base jumping rigs aren't cheap. I'm sure wingsuits aren't cheap. I'm sure hiring planes to jump out of isn't cheap.
Yeah, well,
I'm sure a year of surgeries isn't cheap.
Yeah.
Although the British medical
British
system.
healthcare system there, which is like a godsend.
Yeah.
I'm pretty glad I wasn't American at that point, because I think I'd be in debt for the rest of my life. But no,
They've gone to Home Depot to get you the bargain for your elbow. Well, you're not covered, so it looks like stainless steel.
DIY.
Yeah, DIY it is.
No, initially I was in the army, so I had a decent paycheck every month.
Okay.
Like, even if I spent all my paycheck when I was in the army,
You still had a
I
place
still
to
had
live.
a place to live and 3 meals a day.
Right.
Yeah, like that was my backup. Like, and we used to call it in the army. We used to call it $1 Million Weekend, where people would go and spend their entire paycheck, on one weekend and be like, "Oh, I got no money," and you're like, "What?" Initially it started when I was in the army. I was like, skydiving. Skydiving, once you've got all the gear, isn't that expensive. You're paying they try and ram a plane full of like 10 or 12 people, each paying £21 or, $30, $40 a piece. And you can go up and do repetitive. And that's how you would initially start. And then the base jumping, I was funding myself. So when I left the army initially, I got into close protection or maritime close protection. So I was going on ships around the coast of Somalia, the Indian Ocean, the Red Sea.
Those crazy pirate-infested areas.
Yeah, where all the pirates are. And we would get on the ships and just protect them from normal container ships, stuff that we use day to day, that have to go through, come from China and have to come to Canada or North America. And we would board somewhere like.
So these are gigantic ships with 10,000 containers on them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, container, oil, whatever they have. I never really focused on what the container, what was in it, but we would just make sure that they had safe passage.
So how many guys is we?
3 of us.
Oh, so there are 3 armed ex-soldiers
Exactly,
on the boat.
at the time.
Okay.
And you would then just go through the passages, and we at that time we were earning good money.
Okay.
Really good money, and we would go away for like 8 weeks at a time, jumping on and off different vessels, and then at the end of the 8 weeks we would then fly home.
Also, you're just doing the most dangerous, right around the Horn or right through the Straits.
Exactly, you're just doing
the Straits of Malacca. No, that's in Indonesia.
That's Indonesia. No, the Gulf of Aden,
Right.
which is like the top part above Somalia.
Right.
And then like we had the Horn, where Socotra, the little tiny island of Somalia, is like around there is quite dangerous. And then the high risk area was also like all the way over to Sri Lanka.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had this huge area. We would just be on the ship, and then when we got out of the high risk area, we would jump off and then jump on another boat going the other way. And
So you were on a lot of really crappy container ships. So I've been on some of them, and some of them are nice, and some of them are just horrendous.
Yeah, really horrendous.
Some of them look like a dystopian, future movie.
Some of them are gross. Like one morning I woke up and I was like, my alarm went off for my shift. So I jump out of bed and I was like, I'm in water. So I switched my light on, and it was a Chinese vessel, and it was this black sludge that has regurgitated through the system and just like overflowed. I'm like, this is someone's shit. And that moment I was like, that's disgusting. And I'm like, come back out, and I'm like, went out my room and realised it was a couple of the bedrooms that had this. So yeah, that was a moment I was like, this is disgusting. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What am I doing?
What are you doing? And then on top of that, you're eating crappy food. Like, have you ever tried these Chinese eggs? They like century eggs.
Yeah, the 100-year-old eggs. I've never tried them. I've tried other crazy stuff.
Yeah, what did you try?
Filipino balut.
Oh yeah.
That's when they take the egg and they fertilize. It's a fertilized chicken egg. So you break it open and it's an embryo. And I was working at the fire hall with a Filipino guy, and I was like, "Hey Merv, we should get some balut for you." He's like, "No fucking way! My dad eats that. It's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen." I'm like, "No, we should do it for your cultural heritage." So I go and I spend like 2 hours driving around town to find the one place that sells balut. So they're like normal looking eggs. And on the way to work that night, I'm like, I should make sure that I can eat this before I bring this in and make this big show, like big tough guy. So I stop on the side of the road, I crack it open, and it's just this goopy baby chicken with like yolk and egg white around it, and I eat it. It's the most horrendous thing I've ever eaten. And there's like bits of beak and bits of feather and bits of, and I'm picking out of my teeth. It's horrendous. But I'm like, okay, I did that once. I bring it in, and we put a nice egg on everyone's plate. Nobody touches it. Now, of course, I've set this all up, so I've got to eat it again. So I make a big deal out of eating it, and meanwhile, some other guy's looking up and going, "Hey, Steph, you know that's supposed to be cooked for 30 minutes?" I've been eating raw balut. So I think at this point, cooked balut would be no problem at all. No, I've not had the 100-year-old egg, but I think I've had, in the egg grossness department, I think I top you. I think I win.
I think you win that one. Yeah.
So you're on these ships. So what are you armed with?
We had Browning long tracks. We had different weapon systems, mainly like semi-automatic, because you're in international waters, so you're there to it's pretty cowboyish. Not the securityness, like there's not many rules in international waters. Yeah, this is why these Somali pirates can come on board and then they take them back to Somalia and then they ransom them off for thousands and thousands of dollars. Mm-hmm. So shipping companies started to employ companies from England and from all around the world, and then they would fly us in and we would then spend our time up there and just be on.
You hear about ships trying to defend themselves with fire hoses. That's old technology? No,
that was still going on when I was there. I don't think it was defending. It's more of a deterrent. Okay. Because these guys, they would have we call them a mothership, so they're like fishing dhows.
Right.
And then on these dhows, they had these little skiffs. So they would have the...
These are the pirates?
The pirates. And then what they would do is they get the mothership out and then they would get on these skiffs and then come and attack a boat with these little bamboo sticks. They would hook on and climb up bamboo sticks. Now,
and they're armed, but they need to get on board.
And they're all armed, but they climb on board. And these could be 10 meter, to get up there. So what they started to do was put hoses on the side, and when they set them out, if a skiff was coming alongside, it's gonna make it hard work for them to come on board. But there was other stuff that we would do that would deter pirates to come on board, like razor wire. We would have weapons and yeah.
How well armed are the pirates? Are they have rocket launchers or just rifles or?
Yeah, for me, I came across 2 lots of pirates in the few years that I did it. I fired 1 warning shot. Mm-hmm. The other time I showed them my rifle, I waved it above my head, and they all looked back and they waved it back to us. We were like, well, what are they going to do now? And they just turned away and left. And it's like a highway. There's just ships after ships after ship. And then,
it's so constrained there, that's the only way to go.
It's the only way to go. And then maybe 6-7 hours later, I come back on shift, and there was a mayday call on the radio, and then every single day we got a sit rep from the people in Dubai who would then say there were pirate attacks here, and here, watch out, and you try and mark them on the map to try and avoid them. So yeah, they just look for guys that haven't got security. Sometimes they come, I've had a couple of friends that have had a bit of a gunfight with them and then they've left, but you don't want to have a gunfight and let these pirates get on board the ship, because if they do that, you're never getting a job again.
Right.
So.
Well, I also imagine that at that point they'll have a grudge because you might have shot some of them.
Yeah, and you're the only 3 white guys on there. You're the...
Pretty easy to find.
Yeah, they're not gonna hold back. So you just would fight to keep them off. But luckily for me, I never came across anything like that. I fired 1 warning shot into where their skiff was. I fired it in front of the skiff. The water splashed up, and they just turned away and left. And I was like, that was easy.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I assume at that point you're waking up the other guys on shift.
The other guys were on shift.
You have some kind of panic button or?
Yeah, we just use phone, call them up. Hey, get up here. We got some suspicious activity, and then we would have 2 two guys and just starting,
Sure.
getting everything ready to fight.
Okay. Interesting. So that funded your jumping.
Yeah, that paid at that time. It paid really well. So we used to work for like 8 weeks at a time, and then come back for like 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. And then in that 8 weeks, I used to just spend all that money just to go traveling and jumping and whatever else.
So now you've transitioned into bodyguarding or close protection. Is there a difference, bodyguarding, close protection?
I don't know. I don't really like. Me personally, I don't like the word bodyguard because it reminds everyone of that old movie, you know, when they're like diving for. It's like, yeah, it's not. You know, for me, close protection is trying to avoid any contact. Like, if I'm being reactive to the trouble, it means that's the last ditch attempt. Like, we should already have had plans in play to get the client never to be exposed to that threat. If it does, then we have to react. But if we can plan a route where we drive, it's different every day. We're not, because as humans we set routines.
Right.
You go to work the same day. You go to the gym the same way. You know, and if you do that all the time, if you have a threat against you, it's not going to be hard to follow you a couple of times, and you go to the gym that way. You go here. It's like, all right, well, I'm just going to plan something on that route. So with us we're there to try and take them different ways all the time, so it's a bit sporadic.
Now, when you say him, who is him?
That's a question everyone likes to ask. Who are you looking after? Yeah, well, I got to keep my job, so I can't really. I wasn't seriously expect you to answer that. That was a trick, even though it's just you and me. It's just a little conversation. So I got to imagine that job is 99% boredom. Yeah, like I'm boredom.
How do you handle that? Because you're such an not adrenaline junkie is maybe the wrong word, but stimulus seeker.
Yeah, like you know, I don't know. I like it. I enjoy it because, you know, I'm not this adrenaline junkie. What I explained to you earlier, I'm very regimented on how I do things.
Okay.
Yeah, and I like the plan, and I like working the plan or playing the game plan or whatever. So for me, it's like it's stimulant. Like, even though it's boredom, and boredom is good in our line of work. Like, if it's boring,
it means it's working.
It means it's working,
and
that means the plan's working, which means then that I'm there now, ready to go. Okay, I'm happy with everything's going on, but if something happens, I can jump in.
Right.
But I get a lot of enjoyment out of knowing that this guy is being looked after, you know, and he's safe because I'm there with him making, you know, the right decisions and being like, hey, boss, maybe we don't want to go down this road. Let's go here. And he's like, okay, let's go that way.
Okay.
So
we're beginning to narrow in on who this is because we've now determined it's a he.
But it changes. Like, honestly, it could be.
He changes his gender?
He changes his gender. Yeah, we're in this today's society where things are fluid.
So it's funny, you mentioned you enjoy making a plan and then working the plan. And I think that's one of the things I really enjoy about jiu-jitsu, because if today, I've taken what didn't work yesterday, and I know what I'm going to work today, and here are the steps of what I want to do. I'm first going to set it up by doing a whole bunch of, I'm going to pass this guy's butterfly guard by 1 minute, just playing with his ankles, trying to pick him up, put him on his back. And then when he starts overreacting to that, I'm going to go to plan B, which was really plan A all along. So you get to make a plan, and then you get to try and pull it off. That's what I really like. One of the things I really like about playing jiu-jitsu. Yeah. So you do jiu-jitsu too.
I do jiu-jitsu, but I imagine that your game is you're going, I'm going to do this because he's now going to do this, and then he's going to do this and do that, and then I'm going to smash him. Me, I'm like, what the hell did you just do? I'm still at that level where I feel like I can make one move ahead.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm at in my jiu-jitsu.
Well, you're blue belt.
I'm a blue belt.
Okay.
I'm relatively new.
That's about right.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I maintain that that's the hardest belt to get in jiu-jitsu because you look at the dropout, white belt to blue belt is the highest dropout by far.
Yeah.
And then, you know, yes, people drop out between blue belt and purple belt to brown belt and so on, but you've already passed through the gauntlet that by far, I don't want to say 70%, 75% of the people who start drop out there.
Yeah, what's the saying when they're saying that you're incompetent and then
you're unconsciously incompetent. You don't know, you're not any good, and you don't know what you're not any good at.
Yeah.
So then there's conscious incompetence.
And that's where I'm at.
Okay.
I know when I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know this.
Okay.
And, I feel that that's the level where I'm stuck. And sometimes sometimes I'm stuck, and other days it's like, oh, I'm starting to get this.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like, no, you're not getting this. Yeah.
Don't worry, that feeling goes on for a long time. I've been doing jiu-jitsu for a long frickin' time, and that still happens on a basis. It might happen at a slightly different level, but the same, like, I had it yesterday, and today it's all gone for a shit. That's normal. And if you don't have it, it really means that you're just playing with, you're not pushing yourself at all.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure that's the same for anybody who's trying to perform at any sport, to do well at any endeavor. That some days they're pushing themselves, they're going to be frustrated. So, yeah, but with your traveling around, you get to train with a fair number of people.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Is like I'm traveling around with different clients to different places, and the last.
So if you're bodyguarding me, you're not going to be with me 24/7. You're going to have days on and days off. No, I have
days on and days off. So, like if I have a client here in Vancouver and he wants to go to LA, or he wants to go to Montreal, or he wants to go to, Texas or Albuquerque, it's like, great. All these times I can, on my days off, I can try and find a gym and try and find somewhere to go and train and get a different outlook on jiu-jitsu and different. I'm learning different techniques that I'm not. You learn stuff at your gym, and everyone starts knowing your game and what you go for. But it's good to go and test myself against like other blue belts in, different gyms around North America, and be like, oh, okay, I'm better here, but I'm down here with other things, and it's nice to see where I can improve. I guess it's like going to a tournament.
Yeah, you don't know if that guy's been a blue belt for 1 day or 5 years. If he's been held back, we're not even going to give you any stripes. We're just going to keep you at blue belt until you should basically be a black belt. So that we can win the blue belt world championships. Have you found? I'm guessing the answer is yes, but have you found people fairly welcoming for you to just draw? Hey guys, I'm in Albuquerque for the day. Do you mind if I train with you?
Yeah, most gyms have been welcoming. A couple of gyms I've gone to that have like real killers in it. And they're just like ram-packed, and sometimes they're not as welcoming. But then I sort of get it, like the gym's packed. I do have a huge sense of every time I'm in a new gym, I'm getting Shark Tanked every day. They're like, who's this guy? Why is he wearing a blue belt? And you're like, okay. And now you have a sense where they're like, okay, go a little hard, and if you go, back with them and you can handle it, they're like, okay, cool, yeah.
How does that kind of, what's the analogy for you sort of in terms of how you feel doing your base jumping, your wingsuiting versus jiu-jitsu? Is there any carryover, or does it satisfy different aspects of your personality and different aspects of what you need to feel fulfilled?
It's all the same. Like I'm finding that what I'm doing base jumping can relate in jiu-jitsu. Like, do you remember the time when I just told you that my favourite part about base jumping is on the exit doing it past the point of no return? Now for me, it's exactly the same stepping on a mat, when the referee calls you forward. I get that same feeling as I step on. Like, I don't know who this guy is, and I, again,
committed now.
I'm committed now. I can't just walk off this thing. And, I now have to give 100% because I don't want to get hurt, and it's like a base jump. Like, I can plan everything up to the point of stepping off. But as I leave and I start flying, I have to be ready for anything. Like anything could happen between me exiting the cliff and landing on the ground safely. And the same way, anything can happen in that jiu-jitsu fight, that the guy does something that I've never seen before. That's what happened in my last tournament. I got put to sleep. I was looking at the points and I was like going around. I'm like, wow, I'm doing really well. Like I was up like 6 points or something, and I was like, yeah, this is good. And I'm like panicking, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do now. Like, I can't seem to submit this guy, and he was just defending me. I look up, and Thomas Lisboa just looks at me. He's like, relax. And I just looked up, and all the noise that's going around was just irrelevant, and all I heard was Thomas going, just relax, just stay there. And I'm like, oh yeah. He's like, you're winning. Relax. I'm like, okay, cool. And it calmed me down. And I was like, oh yeah, well that's what I do in base jumping.
Mm-hmm.
I try and relax, I calm down. This doesn't need to panic me, because as soon as I start panicking, I make mistakes.
So you said you got put to sleep though?
I did. I made a mistake.
Oh, okay. Did I say match when you were relaxing?
Yeah. So I turn around, and then he does something. He opened his guard. Yeah, but he had,
This sounds like a baseball choke from the bottom.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, he had me in the choke here, and I was like, and all I heard was Thomas in his thick Brazilian accent shout pass. But he wasn't shouting pass. He was shouting don't pass.
Oh.
And I was like, oh. So this guy's legs opened up, and I was like a bat out of hell, knees slid in. I was like, yes! Turned around, I got him, and I was like, oh shit. And I had my hand in, I looked at the clock, and I'm like, 30 seconds. I was like, you got this.
And then you remember being flat on your back.
Yeah, I was flat on my back.
Oh, no.
I woke up, everything was yellow, and I was like, what's going on? And I burst out laughing. I was just like, you got me, And I had a good time. I learned a lot, and that was a fun one. Like, even though I lost, I got put to sleep. The guy came up to me, and he was like, I was tired. Like, that was my last attempt on you, and I was like, that's a win in my book.
It's amazing how that little difference that one word makes. Back when I was doing much more extreme kayaking and canoeing, I had a friend who was paddling in South America, and they were going down some really dangerous river that had some major waterfalls on it. So they were using big canoes for the day, like 14-foot canoes, which were, now they use much smaller ones. And the guide said, okay, for this waterfall, and he's in broken English, go left or die. But my friend heard, go left and die, so he went right. And ended up in the hospital, and basically that was, I think, the last extreme canoeing he did. But
oh, wow.
It was probably overdue, because this guy had a history of, made normal little adventures turning into big, horrific adventures, which,
yeah.
I mean, I guess in base jumping, you don't have that many big, horrific adventures because you don't survive. Mm-hmm. But, in paddling, there's a chance of dying, but there's definitely a possibility of more adventures as you're floating, as you're garage sailing all over the river, and your paddles there on that bank, and your boat's snapped in half there, and you're going round and round some hole. So, don't pass. Don't pass.
Yeah, but I think base jumping and jiu-jitsu has a lot in common, our fighting. And the way that I got into base jumping was through a UFC fight.
Really?
His name's Lando Venata.
Okay.
He contacted me once. He was training in Albuquerque with a guy I was in the army with, and wanted to get into jumping. So my friend connected us. And we started to talk, and I had a couple of friends that did jiu-jitsu before, and they said, oh, you should try it, you'll be more channeled. And then I got talking to this guy, and I was like, all right. And we had the same outlook on life. I mean, we still do. We're still good friends. Like, I'm going to meet him next week in Los Angeles. He's just doing his skydive course after his win at the UFC. And he helped me get into the sport. But, he's had struggles in his life, and I had struggles in mine. And jiu-jitsu really managed to channel it. I call myself an athlete in base jumping, but in our sport, you don't actually have to be an athlete like you would imagine. We're not training 3 times a day. I would go and do one jump, and then I would drink copious amounts of beer till I didn't remember. Eat pizza, eat pasta, eat crap.
Mm-hmm.
I was 205 pounds at my heaviest.
Wow.
So
what are you now? You're
165.
Okay. What was your fighting weight? What was your army weight?
160, 165.
Okay.
So
So you're back down to...
I'm back to where I should
Good for you.
be. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with that. But I went through a really bad stage after the accident, so
No doubt.
yeah, I mentally with shit caught up with me, you know, so from the army or losing my friends and whatever else, and then my accident, it all like came to head, and I got diagnosed with PTSD, and I was like, well,
Makes sense.
makes sense, but I didn't think it was. Again, it was one of those things. Like, that's a made up. It's a made up thing, right? You know, like, it's not going to happen to me. Like, I'm a strong dude. But yeah, it caught me off guard, and I took an overdose, like back in England, you know, like, and that's how I ended up here. I took an overdose in England and
Overdose of?
just tablets like ibuprofen, paracetamol, or I don't know what you call it over here, ancetamo. What's the?
They're all painkillers?
Just a painkiller, and I just like went to sleep.
Right.
I woke up like a few days later, and I was like, whoa. That didn't work. Yeah.
Oh,
Luckily.
were you trying to kill yourself?
Oh yeah. I was
Okay.
I was trying to like finish it, and anyway, it didn't work.
This was after your accident.
After my accident, I recovered. Shit was just getting to me, and I was like, "No, I'm done." You know.
What's an example of shit getting to you? Is this getting personal? But
No, it's cool.
But it might actually help people
Yeah, it
who
will
are
help
going
people,
through.
like, because stuff was getting over where, you know, like, people were getting on my nerves. Like, I'm not a great people person anyway, but, you know, like, I would get irritated, and I'm like, the way you just said that, are you trying to start something funny? Or and you're not. You're
Dude, I was just asking if you wanted milk in your coffee.
Exactly. I'm like, what's
You
your
had that
problem?
tone of voice.
I'm like, how dare you do it? And I was getting angry, and I was getting agitated, and things weren't, and I was pushing people away, and I was destroying relationships.
I'm assuming that girl that you were with when you smashed your body was no longer with you?
I destroyed that. I was like, get the fuck out of my life. I don't need you. And then I was on a whirlwind, and then I was drinking heavily, and I was like trying to get out of that, and I was like, this is crazy. And then the doctor's like, yeah, you've got post-traumatic stress. And I'm like, yeah, you're just saying that because I was in the military. You're full of shit. And then they're like, here, take these tablets. I'm like, I'm not taking fucking tablets. Yeah. And then eventually, I got pushed down the line of like the pharmaceutical antidepressant and shit, you know. And I was like, all right, whatever. I started to get a little bit more stable, but it wasn't great. And eventually I decided that I just wanted to get out of the UK, because the UK was what was... I felt suffocated there, and I was like, I just need to get out and just have a release.
I'll head to the colonies.
I head to the colonies, so I booked a flight to New York. And
The former colonies.
yeah. I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to go across America. I'm going to get in a car. I'm going to drive across America. Have my own time. I'm going to meet friends that I've met on the base jump in the skydive world, and just have a good time for the next couple of weeks. And then I'll get to LA, and then I'll get a flight back to New York, and then I'll fly back to England, and then I can try and get back to a steady state. You know, and, you know, I was like, okay, cool. So I was driving across America, finally get LA. I had a good time. Got to LA, and I was like partying with my friends. You know, I'd never done any drugs in my life. Yeah, my buddy came up and was just like, you should try some acid. You what? And I'm like, I'm a military dude, right? I've never done it. It's like, no, I'm scared. Like, I've been diagnosed with this, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is, you know, and he was like, you should try it. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. I tried it. Anyway, it's good. But I woke up the next day, and I woke up really late. I woke up at 1 p.m. My flight was leaving New York at 1 p.m. Eastern time, and I was in LA.
Okay, that's not so good.
I was like, oh, bugger, I've lost this. But my mind was, I was in this peaceful, like, place. Like, I wasn't worried. Like, the plan wasn't made. And I was like, shit, what? Normally I'd be like, why am I not there? I'm angry, like, scrambling around.
This is not on the checklist.
This isn't on the checklist. Why are we not there? Like, whatever. And I'm not. I wasn't angry. I was just like, oh, okay. Well, what should I do? And my buddy's like, well, you go to Mexico. And I'm like, no, I want to go to Canada. And they're like, okay. So I rented another car. I drove from LA to Canada, and I came to Vancouver. And
That's a cool drive.
yeah, it is a really nice drive.
With the Oregon coast and all that. I'm sure you did that.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. And I stopped off like Yosemite, and loads of places on the way up here. And then I got to Vancouver, and I was like, whoa, this place is pretty nice. And then I just kept coming back here. So when that trip ended, I was like, well, what am I going to do now? Like, but I was in this weird, like, no need to go back to England. Like, I've always rushed to go back there, and I'm like, why am I going back there? I have no house, I don't have kids, I don't have any debt back there. It's like, why am I trying to go there when all I have is my parents? And I love my parents, but like that country, it suffocates me. Like I don't like it. And
what do you think it is? It's like, what is it about it suffocating you? Is it that every street corner is associated with another thing that went bad, or is it just that there isn't the nature there that there is here? Or like, when you say suffocation, I think I understand what you mean, but I don't understand what triggers it. What triggers that feeling?
I don't know. Maybe I was just I'm an outdoorsy person, and we got our parks in England, but they're like,
fell walking.
Yeah, exactly. You can go up to the Lake District and you can get there, but you're still a stone throw. Like if you walk 50 miles that way, you're going to walk into a housing estate. Right. Whereas here you walk 50 miles into the backcountry and
you still got another
500 to go.
So it's not surprising you ended up in Squamish, which is kind of like the adventure sports capital of Canada, really.
Yeah, like I never heard of Squamish. Honestly, I never heard of that in my life. And I drove up to Vancouver and I fell in love with Vancouver. It's a small city. It's a city, but it's small enough for it to have that small town feel compared to cities in England. And then I came up to Squamish and someone was like, you need to do this base jump. And I was like, okay, got up here. I was like, yeah, I could live here. But I wasn't sure because I still needed that city feel. Yeah. But Squamish was too out there at that time. Yeah. And at the same...
hour drive.
An hour drive, yeah. And I was like, you know what, I'm happy to get up early in the morning, drive to Squamish, do the jump, drive back to the city. And I didn't have a girlfriend, I didn't have anything. So I was like, I need the city to feel comfortable. And at the same time, I needed a hub from Vancouver because I was still doing shoots I did a shoot down in Rio de Janeiro. I flew past the Christ Redeemer statue. I was flying to doing commercials in Italy. And I was doing all these like TV shows and stuff like that where I still needed to be flown around and I was sponsored. So they wanted me I had commitments as a sponsored athlete to be at certain shows. So I was like, okay, I need to be near an airport. And then eventually they were saying, we're flying you back to Vancouver every time. And my parents said to me, like, you're not coming back to England. Like, you should stay in Canada. And I was like, oh yeah, I should. So at that point then I started looking in and I, went and got my permanent residency here and I met my wife here. We got married in Vegas. That was pretty wild. And I don't like Vegas. But I tell you what, getting married in Vegas is fun.
Okay, I'm with you on not liking Vegas. I am one of the 10% of people who just cannot stand that city.
Yeah.
Probably because I don't drink nearly enough or do nearly enough drugs, and I can't stand drunk chicks. But what made your wedding fun? Like, how did you manage to flip that script there?
Yeah, well, we were thinking, well, it's only going to be a couple of days. Where can people fly into that they don't have to have connections? I got friends all around the world, and we had friends come from South Africa, like Scotland and England.
And you can go direct to Vegas.
And they can go direct to Vegas. Yeah. So we were like, and...
They have a few hotel rooms there.
Yeah, just a few. And it's actually really cheap to get married in Vegas. Like, we spent like just over $2,000, and we had everything paid for.
The same Filipino guy for whom I ate the balut wanted to get married in Vegas and spring a midget Filipino Elvis pastor on his wife for the wedding. So we did talk him out of that. So once in a while, you do get useful advice. So you didn't have a midget Filipino Elvis?
No. We had just had a normal guy, but it was weird. It was like a McDonald's wedding, like a drive-through. We weren't in a drive-through. We had like a nice little chapel, but when we got there was someone in that chapel already getting married, and then behind us there was the next guys that were a little bit earlier. So we had like these, like, next, and you move in there and you get your little 15-minute slot, and then you get married, and then it's like leave and the next one come through.
Wow.
And it's pretty
economical.
Yeah, like I was like, that's perfect. Because I'm not the sort of guy who wants to stand in a church for an hour while the priest goes on about whatever. I'm like, let's just get this done and have a good time with our friends. And it was a small enough group of friends. We had 30 people come out. I got to spend time with every single one of them.
Right.
You know, whereas I've watched my friends and my family get married, and you're like, you guys, you bring people in and you're paying for their dinners. Like, you're paying like $100 for their dinner, and you just get to speak to them for 30 seconds. You know, like, what is that? What's all that about? Like, why are we getting into this age where it's so expensive to get married? So going to Vegas with our mind was like, well...
Have you heard about in Japan, apparently, the number of guests that you have at your wedding is a status symbol? So you can go rent wedding guests.
Oh, wow.
They'll come in and they have a job circuit. You know, they have a job going to different weddings. They learn, I guess, the bare bones basics about the bride and the groom. Then they go mingle, and then they're off to the next wedding. So it's the opposite. You should have had some in Vegas. You should have flown them in from Japan.
I was walking through the strip, like Crystal was in her wedding dress, and everyone kept coming like, "Oh my God, that's amazing! You know, congratulations!" And you know, but we just had a good time, and
good.
For me, for Vegas, that changed it. I was like, "Oh yeah, it's not just that Sin City place. You know, it's pretty good fun."
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. If you are active on Instagram, yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Jamie Flynn Bass.
How do you spell all that?
JamiefLynnBase.
And that's focused obviously on your jumping and your flying as opposed to your
it's
close
focused,
protection.
Exactly. Yeah.
Here's me and Mr. X.
Mainly my jumping, my skiing, and my adventure sports. So I focus a lot on I try and tell a story of my jiu-jitsu, how my jiu-jitsu's coming along, how my base jumping, skydiving, and everything else is coming along.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks so much. And
thanks for having me.
Good luck in all those various disciplines and careers.
Yeah, thanks.